The return. The Galactic Assembly's Grand Chamber had never felt so tense. 700 representatives from across known space sat in uncomfortable silence as the massive holographic display showed what many had long feared: a human vessel approaching the Assembly's space. Ambassador Vila of the Arcturian Consensus adjusted her crystalline sensory arrays, convinced she must be misreading the energy signatures. The ship was unlike anything recorded in the Assembly's archives. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on directly. Most striking was its size, nearly 3 times larger than the largest Assembly dreadnought. "The vessel has made no aggressive moves," announced High Speaker Zenra, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with anxiety. "They are broadcasting on all standard frequencies in perfect galactic common." A message appeared in the chamber's shared consciousness stream. "This is Captain Elena Santos of the Earth vessel Horizon Breaker. We request diplomatic audience with the Galactic Assembly. We come in peace." Peace. The word echoed through the chamber like a bitter joke. 2 centuries ago, the Assembly had exiled humanity from known space, believing them too dangerous, too unpredictable to join galactic civilization. The humans had been given a choice: remain confined to their solar system or leave known space entirely. They chose to leave, vanishing into the unexplored regions beyond the outer rim. Vila remembered the stories her predecessors had passed down. Humans had been deemed too adaptable, too quick to turn any technology toward potential weapons. Their minds worked in ways that terrified the Assembly psychologists. They could imagine violence where none had existed before, could repurpose the most benign tools into instruments of war. Their creativity, unbound by evolutionary constraints, made them dangerous. "We must refuse them entry," declared Representative Koth of the Silicon Collective, his crystalline form vibrating with emotion. "The Exile decree stands." They crossed 16,000 light-years of unexplored space, Vila found herself saying, drawing surprised attention from her colleagues. "They survived regions we deemed impossible to navigate. Perhaps we should listen." The Horizon Breaker hung in space like a question mark, its design defying conventional analysis. As the Assembly debated, more details became clear. The ship's hull was composed of materials unknown to Assembly science. Its power signature suggested capabilities far beyond current galactic technology. High Speaker Zenra raised all 4 of his appendages, calling for order. 2 centuries ago, our predecessors made a decision based on fear. Today, we face a choice between maintaining that fear or showing wisdom. The humans have clearly advanced beyond our expectations. They return not with weapons drawn, but with an open hand. The chamber erupted in debate, but Vila kept her attention on the ship's broadcast. Something in Captain Santos' voice carried weight, not the arrogance of conquerors, but the quiet confidence of explorers who had seen wonders beyond imagination. A second transmission came through. "We understand your caution. In our absence, we have grown. We have learned. The galaxy beyond known space has taught us much about ourselves and our place in the universe. We offer this knowledge freely, along with a warning of what we found in the dark between stars." The chamber fell silent again. Warning. The word hung heavy in the artificial atmosphere. "Connect me to their command," Vila requested suddenly. As the Assembly's designated first contact specialist, she had the authority. When Captain Santos' image appeared before her, Vila was struck by how much humans had changed. Santos' eyes held depths that spoke of centuries of advancement, her very presence suggesting evolutionary leaps. "Welcome back," Vila said, her translator converting crystalline harmonics to galactic common. "You mentioned a warning." Santos nodded, her expression grave. "What we found in deep space explains why this region of the galaxy was settled so sparsely, why so many ancient civilizations vanished without trace. The Exile forced us to look into the abyss, and in that abyss we found something looking back." Vila felt her crystalline structure vibrate with anticipation and fear. The human's words carried the weight of truth, And suddenly the assembly's old fears seemed small compared to what humanity's return might portend. "We offer our knowledge, our advancements, and our partnership," Santos continued, "not because we seek to overturn our exile, but because what's coming for all of us requires unity. The question isn't whether humanity is too dangerous to rejoin galactic society. It's whether the galaxy can survive without us." As the assembly chambers erupted in concerned murmurs, Vila realized that humanity's return wasn't just an end to exile. It was the beginning of something far more significant. The real question was whether the assembly was ready for what humanity had become, and what they had discovered in the unknown reaches of space. Ancient sins. The private council chamber felt smaller than Vila remembered. 5 days had passed since the Horizon Breaker's arrival, and the assembly had moved from shock to cautious diplomacy. Captain Santos sat across from her, the human's presence somehow both reassuring and unsettling. Between them, a holographic display showed historical records from 2 centuries ago. "The judgment of 2218, Santos said, her voice calm as she gestured to the floating images. "The day humanity was deemed too dangerous for galactic society. But your archives are incomplete." High Speaker Zenra's bioluminescence flickered with concern. "Impossible. Our records are absolute." "Your records show what you feared we might become," Santos replied, "but not what we actually were. Watch." The hologram shifted, showing new footage that made Vila's crystalline form resonate with shock. The images came from human archives, showing not weapons development or military expansion, but desperate attempts to protect colony worlds from something the assembly had never seen. "The Void Dancers," Santos explained. "We encountered them first, on our outer colonies, entities that exist in the space between conventional matter. They were testing us, probing our defenses. The assembly interpreted our rapid military advancement as aggression, but we were preparing for something we couldn't fully explain." The footage showed strange distortions in space, colony ships being torn apart by forces that seemed to defy physics. Human vessels fought back with increasingly sophisticated weapons, each innovation born of desperate necessity. "Why didn't you tell us?" Vila asked, her harmonic voice carrying traces of regret. "We tried." Santos's smile held no bitterness, only understanding. "But how do you explain a threat that exists outside normal spacetime? Our warnings seemed like excuses for military expansion. Our attempts to describe the Void Dancers sounded like madness to species that had never encountered them." The next set of images showed the human exodus. What the assembly had viewed as a defeated retreat was revealed as something else entirely, a calculated move into unknown space, following the trail of their mysterious adversaries. 200 years in the void changed us," Santos continued. "We had to evolve, to think beyond conventional boundaries. Every discovery, every adaptation, was driven by survival and understanding. We learned to bend space in ways your scientists would consider impossible. We developed technology that looks like magic even to our own ancestors." Zenra's appendages twitched nervously. "And these, Void Dancers, you followed them." "We did more than follow them. We learned their nature, their purpose. They're not evil, not in any way we understand the concept. They're curious in their own alien way. They test species, push them to evolve or die. They've been doing it for millions of years, leaving empty sectors and vanished civilizations in their wake." Vila processed this information through her crystalline matrices. "The dead zones," she whispered. "The regions of space where ancient civilizations simply stopped existing." "Yes," Santos nodded. "You've been finding their testing grounds, the remains of species that couldn't adapt quickly enough. Humanity's dangerous capacity for rapid advancement, our frightening ability to weaponize any technology. These weren't flaws. They were survival traits, developed through countless generations of evolution, preparing us for this moment." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't been exiled. They had been inadvertently pushed directly toward their destiny. Their exile had forced them to face and understand a threat that had been quietly culling species for millions of years. "They're coming back to known space," Santos said finally. "Our exile let us track their patterns, understand their movements. They don't think like us. They operate on cycles of thousands of years. This sector's testing time is approaching. The Assembly faces a choice: stand with humanity, accept our help and our unconventional methods, or face the Void Dancers alone." Vila turned to Zenra, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent frequencies. "Speaker, the Assembly must know everything. Our ancestors' fear may have accidentally saved us all by forcing humanity to become what we needed them to be." As if in response to her words, the ship's sensors detected new anomalies at the edge of Assembly space. The Void Dancers weren't waiting. Humanity's return had accelerated their timetable, and the real test, not just of humanity, but of all sapient life in the sector, was about to begin. Santos stood, her augmented eyes reflecting light in ways that reminded everyone present just how far humanity had evolved. "We offer every advancement, every adaptation we've developed, not as supplicants seeking readmission to your society, but as allies against something that threatens all of us. The question is, can the Assembly move past its ancient fears to embrace a future that requires us all to change?" The answer to that question would determine the fate of not just humanity or the Assembly, but of all intelligent life in their corner of the galaxy. The ancient sins of fear and misunderstanding had led to humanity's exile, but perhaps those same sins had forged humanity into exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. Crisis point. The Assembly's Emergency Command Center hummed with activity as reports flooded in from across the sector. Space itself seemed to be tearing apart at the edges of Assembly territory. 3 colony worlds had already gone dark, their quantum communication relays silent. Captain Santos stood before the holographic display, her augmented eyes tracking distortion patterns that most species couldn't even perceive. Beside her, Vila's crystalline form resonated with the strange energies that preceded each Void Dancer appearance. "They're testing our response times," Santos explained, gesturing to the pattern of attacks. "This is how they begin: probing defenses, analyzing communication networks, understanding how we organize ourselves." The Assembly's military coordinator, General Tan of the Thoraxian Collective, chittered in frustration. "Our weapons pass right through their distortions. Even quantum-locked torpedoes have no effect." "Conventional weapons won't work," Santos agreed. "The Void Dancers exist partially outside our dimensional space. That's why we had to develop new approaches during our exile. Horizon Breaker, initiate Protocol Umbra." The human vessel that had been stationed above the Assembly capital world began to change. Its hull shifted like liquid metal, geometric patterns flowing across its surface in impossible ways. Energy readings spiked in ways that made the Assembly sensors short out. "What we learned in exile," Santos continued, "is that you can't fight the Void Dancers directly. You have to speak their language, the language of space-time itself." The Horizon Breaker's transformation completed, and suddenly it was hard to look at directly. The ship seemed to exist in multiple spaces simultaneously, its outline blurring not from movement, but from occupying several quantum states at once. By the first light, Vila whispered, her crystalline matrices struggling to process what she was seeing. "You've learned to exist as they do." "Partially," Santos corrected. "Enough to hurt them, to make them notice us as equals rather than test subjects. But we need the Assembly's help to implement this on a sector-wide scale." General Tsan's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. "The Thoraxian fleet stands ready, but what can we do against an enemy we can barely perceive?" A new alert blared through the command center. A massive Void Dancer manifestation was forming near one of the Assembly's core worlds, home to billions of sentients. The tactical display showed it as a writhing mass of spatial distortions, like a knot in the fabric of reality. "Now," Santos said, her voice carrying the weight of 2 centuries of preparation, "we show you what humanity learned in the dark. Your ships may not be able to harm them directly, but they can create convergence points, areas where the dimensional barriers are weakened enough for our weapons to have maximum effect. She transmitted a series of complex quantum equations to the Assembly's fleet. These calculations will let you modify your drive signatures to create temporary weak points in spacetime. Your ships won't be fighting the Void Dancers. They'll be changing the battlefield itself. General Tan studied the equations, his military mind quickly grasping the strategy. You want us to turn space itself into a weapon. Exactly. Santos smiled. This is why humanity scared you so much before our exile. We don't just adapt technology. We change the rules of what's possible. Now that creativity might save us all. The Assembly's fleet moved into position around the massive Void Dancer manifestation. Following the human protocols, they began manipulating their drive fields in precise patterns. Space itself seemed to shiver as hundreds of ships worked in concert to create a web of dimensional stress points. The horizon breaker moved to the center of the formation, its transformed hull pulsing with energies that defied conventional physics. This was the moment of truth, the first coordinated strike against the Void Dancers by a unified force of humanity and the Assembly. All ships, execute pattern Omega on my mark, Santos commanded. Remember, we're not just fighting for survival. We're proving that different species, different approaches to existence itself, can work together. We're proving that the Assembly's greatest fear about humanity, our ability to change everything we touch, is actually our greatest gift to the galaxy. As the Void Dancer manifestation began its attack pattern, the combined fleet prepared to demonstrate just how much humanity had learned in exile, and how much stronger they could all be together. The crisis point had arrived, but for the first time in the Assembly's history, they faced it not with fear of the unknown, but with the confidence that came from having humanity's innovative spirit on their side. Unlikely alliance. Space fractured and reformed as the combined fleet engaged the Void Dancer manifestation. The horizon breaker moved like a quantum ghost through the battlefield, its transformed hull leaving trails of dimensional distortion in its wake. Around it, Assembly ships executed their new roles with increasing confidence, their drive fields weaving a complex web of spacetime disruptions. Pattern holding at 87% synchronization, reported General San, his compound eyes tracking multiple tactical displays simultaneously. The dimensional stress points are forming exactly as predicted. Captain Santos nodded, her augmented vision perceiving layers of reality that normal humans had once found impossible to comprehend. The Void Dancers are responding. They've never encountered coordinated resistance like this. Look, they're changing their pattern. The massive manifestation began to split into smaller entities, each one probing the fleet's defenses from different dimensional angles. It was a tactic that had overwhelmed countless civilizations in the past, but this time was different. Phyraxian Squadron Delta, maintain position, Santos commanded. Arcturian crystal ships, prepare for resonance burst on my mark. She turned to Vila, who had insisted on joining the command crew. Your people's crystalline technology is crucial for what comes next. Vila's form vibrated with anticipation. The crystal lattices are aligned. We've never attempted to channel energy on this scale before. That's exactly why it will work, Santos explained. The Void Dancers analyze and counter known strategies. They've never seen crystal-based ships channeling quantum wake energy from a dimensionally shifted human vessel. The battle unfolded like an intricate dance of physics and impossibility. Assembly ships that had once feared humanity's innovative potential now worked in perfect concert with human technology. Each species brought their unique strengths to the fight. Phyraxian precision, Arcturian crystal resonance, Silicon collective processing power, and humanity's ability to bend reality itself. Energy spike, General San announced. The manifestations are converging for a major attack. Santos' expression showed grim satisfaction. They're following the pattern we predicted. All ships, execute protocol Umbra Prime. Crystalline resonators to maximum capacity. The Horizon Breaker's transformed hull began to pulse with increasing intensity. The energy it generated flowed through the assembly fleet's carefully positioned ships, each vessel's unique technology adding its own signature to the growing web of force. What we learned in Exile, Santos explained as the energy built to critical levels, is that the Void Dancers aren't invincible. They're curious, yes, but they can be hurt. More importantly, they can be taught. We're not just fighting them, we're showing them something new. The Void Dancer manifestations suddenly halted their attack pattern. The massive entities seemed to ripple with what might have been confusion, their usual fluid movements becoming erratic. They're attempting to analyze our strategy, Vila observed, her crystalline sensors detecting subtle changes in the entity's quantum structure. But every ship in this fleet is doing something slightly different, yet perfectly coordinated. They can't predict our next move, because we're combining technologies in ways that have never existed before. Santos smiled. Exactly. Humanity's gift isn't just our technology or our adaptability. It's our ability to take different pieces and create something entirely new. We don't just think outside the box. We rebuild the box into something else entirely. The Void Dancers began to retreat, their manifestations pulling back from the fleet's combined energy field. But rather than letting them escape, Santos gave the order they had all been waiting for. All ships, channel maximum power through the quantum wake. Show them what cooperation really means. The battlefield erupted with energy as hundreds of ships fired in perfect synchronization. Crystal resonance combined with quantum distortions, conventional weapons merged with dimensional shifts, and the very fabric of space-time buckled under the combined assault. For the first time in recorded history, the Void Dancers didn't just retreat. They showed signs of damage. Their manifestations flickered and destabilized, forced partly into normal space by the unprecedented combination of technologies. By the first light, General Tsan whispered, "We've actually hurt them." More than that, Santos corrected, "We've surprised them." In all their eons of testing species, they've never encountered this level of cooperation, this ability to combine different approaches into something entirely new. This isn't just a victory in battle. It's proof that the Assembly's fear of humanity's influence was exactly backwards. The battle wasn't over. The Void Dancers were already regrouping, adapting to what they had learned. But something fundamental had changed. The Assembly fleet moved with new confidence, each species proud of their contribution to this impossible achievement. Humanity's exile had forced them to learn the secrets of dimensional engineering, but it was the combination of all their technologies, all their different approaches to existence, that had turned the tide. As the fleet prepared for the next phase of battle, Santos shared a knowing look with Vila. The Assembly had once feared humanity's ability to change everything they touched. Now that very trait, combined with the unique strengths of every Assembly species, was becoming their greatest hope for survival. New Dawn. 3 months after the first battle, the Galactic Assembly's Grand Chamber looked vastly different. Where once rigid segregation had kept species apart, now representatives mingled freely, sharing insights and technologies. The massive chamber center hosted a new addition, a quantum crystalline display showing real-time movements of the Void Dancers across known space. Captain Santos stood before the Assembly, her appearance subtly changed by recent events. The integration of Assembly biotechnology with human quantum engineering had left its mark. Subtle crystalline patterns traced her skin, while her augmented eyes now held hints of thoracian compound structures. "The Void Dancers have withdrawn from 3 more sectors," she announced, gesturing to the display. "Their pattern has fundamentally changed. For the first time in their existence, they're encountering species that learn faster than they do." Vila, newly appointed as the Assembly's Director of Interspecies Integration, moved forward. Her crystalline form now incorporated elements of human quantum technology, allowing her to exist partially in the same dimensional space as the Void Dancers. "The latest data confirms it," she added. "They're no longer testing us. They're studying us. The way we combine our technologies, the speed of our adaptation. We've become something new to them, something interesting. High-speaker Zendra's bioluminescence pulsed with pride. The integration initiative has exceeded all projections. Combining human quantum engineering with assembly technologies has advanced our capabilities by centuries. The changes were evident throughout assembly space. Phyrexian ships now phased through multiple dimensions, their military precision enhanced by human innovation. Arcturian crystal cities resonated with quantum frequencies, creating protective fields that the Void Dancers couldn't penetrate. The Silicon Collective had evolved into quantum processors, their consciousness expanding across dimensional boundaries. Humanity's greatest gift, Santos said, addressing the full assembly, was never our technology or our adaptability. It was our ability to see potential in everything and everyone. We don't just create new technologies, we create new possibilities. She gestured to the transformed chamber around them. Look at us now, not just cooperating, but evolving together, every species contributing their unique strengths, creating something greater than any of us could have achieved alone. A alert chimed softly. Another Void Dancer manifestation had appeared at the edge of assembly space, but now such appearances brought excitement rather than fear. Each encounter was an opportunity to learn, to grow, to combine their abilities in new ways. They're not our enemies anymore, Vila explained, her crystalline form resonating with the enhanced sensors throughout the chamber. They're becoming our teachers, pushing us to evolve not through fear, but through curiosity. The very trait that once made them terrifying now drives our advancement. The assembly had transformed from a loose confederation of fearful species into something unprecedented, a true union of diverse beings, each bringing their unique perspectives and abilities to face the universe's challenges. Humanity's exile, intended to protect the galaxy from their disruptive influence, had instead prepared them to lead the assembly into a new era of exploration and discovery. We propose a new initiative, Santos announced, sharing a meaningful look with Vila. The Void Dancers have shown us that space holds more mysteries than any single species can comprehend. But together, combining all our perspectives and abilities, we can explore dimensions beyond conventional space-time. The chamber erupted in excited discussion as Santos revealed the plans, a new class of ships that combined all their technologies, crews made up of multiple species working in perfect harmony, their differences becoming their greatest strength. 200 years ago, the assembly feared humanity would change everything we touched. Santos continued. They were right. But change isn't something to fear. It's the universe's greatest constant. The Void Dancers have spent millions of years pushing species to evolve or perish. We've shown them a third option, evolve together. As if in response to her words, the quantum crystalline display showed new patterns forming in deep space. The Void Dancers weren't retreating. They were changing their own behavior, adapting to match the complexity of the civilizations they'd helped forge. This is how we face the future, Vila declared, her voice carrying the harmony of multiple species technologies. Not as separate beings fighting for survival, but as a unified force exploring the infinite possibilities of existence. The assembly chamber, once a place of rigid protocol and careful distance, now hummed with the energy of unlimited potential. Humanity's return from exile hadn't just saved them from the Void Dancers, it had shown them all a new way to exist. Together, they had transformed fear into curiosity, isolation into connection, and difference into strength. As the new initiative was unanimously approved, Santos looked out at the transformed assembly. The galaxy's greatest fear, humanity's ability to change everything they touched, had become its greatest hope. The dawn of this new era promised not just survival, but evolution beyond anything they had imagined possible. Together, they would explore not just the space between stars, but the infinite dimensions of existence itself.